Welcome to this installment of Joe's Productions lectures. This is a lecture that we're going to focus on the Scopes monkey trial, a trial that has become quite famous in film and history, and it really is an examination of the cultural conflict that was taking place in the 1920s. Before we begin, I want to kind of remind you of the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, of the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment, the part that I really want to focus on is this part right here. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise of. And the wild thing about it is religion's always been a huge part of American history, from the Pilgrims coming over here in 1620s to the Mormon faith kind of being founded in America to Great Awakenings. We had one, then we had the Second Great Awakening. So religion has played a role in a variety of different ways in American history. In fact, if you take a look at America and you compare it to some countries in Europe, the importance of religion, roughly 50% of Americans claim that religion is very important to them. And to give you some perspective, look at the numbers right below. It is much lower. So America, when you compare it, especially to other Western nations, especially in Europe, is a pretty religious country. In fact, when it comes to like morality and belief in God, in America, 53% of respondents in this survey by the Pew Research Center said religion is necessary to believe in God. Or religion is necessary, when it comes to having high morals and things of this nature. So what is the trial of the century? What is this Scopes trial? And I was starting thinking to myself, this trial of the century. In my life, there's been all sorts of crazy trials that attracted all sorts of media attention. You have, of course, the big famous one when Michael Jackson, rest in peace, was arrested for the charges that were placed against him. And, of course, one of the most famous trials when I was in high school was this of O.J. Simpson. The media was just obsessed with that. And then, of course, pick one. Lindsay Lohan's been arrested a million different times. Look at her mugshots. Just, pick your favorite. And then, of course, more recently, your friend Justin Bieber, has yet to go on trial. But all of these are celebrities who got caught in the public eye. But the trial we're going to talk about today is the so-called monkey trial.
The people say we monkey around, but we're too busy singing to put anybody down.
Now, the monkey trial, these are the two chief lawyers, the defendant and the prosecutor. We'll meet them a little bit later. So, to start, what the heck is this thing about? It's called the monkey trial, but to put it simply, it's about evolution. Evolution. Now, evolution is a complex idea, scientific theory, of course, created and developed largely by the work of Mr. Charles Darwin in his The Origin of Species. And it's, a complex scientific, set of ideas that all of life has evolved over millions of years, and this idea of survival of the fittest and things like this is what Charles Darwin wrote about back in the 19th century. Now, why do we care about it in the 1920s? Well, quickly, I just want to, evolution's fascinating because, you hear scientific theory and you think, oh, it's a theory, it can't be true, or, scientists, it's a guess they have, but it's actually been proven. We could look at fossils. In fact, humans, Homo, the species, the genus Homo, has been around for roughly 2.3 million years. There's all sorts of different I don't even know what to call it, Homo habilis, different species of Homo, and you have Homo habilis, early man, and of course, when I was in Tanzania, it was fascinating because in 1947, they found this skull of Australopithecus africanus. So smart sounding. An early man skeleton. So scientists have studied this, Darwin started it, and others have since explored the evolution, the survival, how have things adapted to their environment. I just want to show you some crazy examples to just blow your mind. Here's a butterfly. I took this photo in the jungle in Peru, and you may notice that this butterfly has a thing that looks like an owl's eye. camels. I never was fascinated by camels until I was in Saudi Arabia, and I was able to see these camels and see how hot it gets in Saudi Arabia in the desert and how big these camels are able to get. And of course, how have they been able to adapt to survive? And that is, of course, in their ability to hold water in these humps. My lumps. Anyways, so here I am kind of taking a little desert tour of Saudi Arabia on top of the camel. They smell, they stink. In fact, I didn't know, but camels produce, you'll never guess.
Who likes to do this? Go ahead.
Milk. In fact, the guy started milking the camel and offered if we wanted to drink it, and I politely declined warm milk straight from the camel in the middle of the desert. So evolution is an amazing thing. Last kind of example, chimpanzees. Humans share over 98% DNA with chimps. They are remarkably closely related to us. This was at a place where chimps are protected, and look at that, they even raise their hand just like you students are supposed to, and protect their food and socialize and scratch themselves in all sorts of different places. So evolution has become accepted scientific theory amongst scientists, and it's a thought and a area of study that we have without a doubt proven. If you have any doubt that we are descended from this kind of process, take a look right here. Now, something you need to know. In the 1920s, there was a growth of fundamentalism. And fundamentalists were people who believed on a literal reading, a literal interpretation of the Bible. Translation, everything in the Bible should be accepted as fact. And it should be taken literally. And fundamentalists are kind of responding to all these changes in the 1920s. They felt that, for example, teaching evolution in schools would destroy or erode people's faith in God or the Bible or in religion. And they really felt, and it's not just evolution, but all these things that are going on in the 20s, the drinking, the jazz, the movies, that there's a moral breakdown of the youth, of the people in the cities. So fundamentalists are kind of reacting and responding to these changes. And really, religious fundamentalists are really kind of targeting the issue of evolution, and in particular, the teaching of evolution in schools. You know, there's this belief that people were slowly losing their faith because if the Bible is not infallible, if everything in the Bible is not true, then man's not made in God's image. There are no miracles. There's no virgin birth. There's no God. There's no salvation. And eventually you lead into this kind of abyss of atheism. So the issue of evolution began to be a key target for fundamentalists. And so in 1925, in the state of Tennessee, a law is passed called the Butler Act. And the Butler Act basically made it illegal to teach evolution in schools in the state of Tennessee. So Darwin, there he is on the right with the beard, he is no longer allowed in the schools, in the public school system. And once again, it's not just about evolution, it's fundamentalists responding to what they perceive as a breakdown of, morality or faith. So the Butler Act is illegal, and then, ladies and gentlemen, a teacher, John Scopes, a teacher in the town of Dayton, Tennessee, decides to challenge the law by teaching evolution to his students. Now, more on that in just a moment. Here's the Butler Act, the bill passed by Congress in 1925 in the state of Tennessee. The important parts are here. There you can see it prohibits the teaching of the evolutionary theory. It is illegal to teach any theory that denies the story of divine creation of man as taught in the Bible, and to teach instead that man has descended from a lower order of animals. And of course, there is the punishment. So this law goes into effect in 1925, and the textbook that John Scopes used it looks unremarkable. This is a page 195 in the book. You can take a look, press pause if you want to read it. It talks about the group of mammals, which includes the monkeys, the apes, and man we call the primates. And it talks about all this stuff. And then, here's the thing that worried some people. And some people were worried about, some people were using the ideas of evolution to promote racist thoughts. Now, this was not something done by most scientists, but if you take a look at this section of the book, you could see something here. Finally, the highest type of all, the Caucasians, represented by the civilized white inhabitants of Europe and America. So, there was a certain element of like this social Darwinism that the weak are stupid or there's certain races that are inferior. So some people were really opposed to the teaching of evolution because of these reasons. Now, here's what happens. There's John Scopes heading to the courtroom with the banner, "Read your Bible," on the side. Now, it's not as simple as it seems. In fact, when you look at the case, it just looks like some guy, some teacher, just randomly decided to be a hero and teach evolution because he felt it was the right thing to do. And one of the reasons there's a trial is the law is broken in Tennessee, so that's part of it, which is the simple part. But there's other parts, and one is a group called the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, actually put an ad out trying to find a teacher who would be willing to break the law. And the reason why they want to break the law, they knew the person would get in trouble, was because they want to challenge the law in court. So the ACLU puts an ad out, John Scopes volunteers, and the other part, which is not shown oftentimes in like popular media, is the people of Dayton, the city leaders, want the trial in their town. And the Dayton city leaders, the kind of community leaders of this small little town in Tennessee, they want it there because it will bring attention. It'll bring publicity. It'll bring, pump some life into the town, possibly tourism and all sorts of other stuff. So a lot of people were looking for this trial to take place, including some of the religious people of the community of Dayton. Now, here's the part that really kind of makes this such a huge deal and one of the trials of the century, the 20th century, the lawyers. The prosecutor was a fundamentalist himself, and he kind of gets the short end of the stick here because everyone kind of makes fun of him at the end of this trial. He's a prosecutor. He ran for president 3 times. He was a guy who was a very thoughtful leader in politics, William Jennings Bryan, and he's the one defending the law in the state of Tennessee. The other guy, the defense attorney, is a guy by the name of Clarence Darrow. Clarence Darrow is like the Johnny Cochran of the 1920s. He was the guy you called. If you got yourself into trouble, he would defend you, and he was a really good lawyer. And you got these two brilliant legal minds facing each other in the courtrooms in the 1920s over this issue that is very divisive. Now here's what happens. The trial, there they are. Because they were friendly with one another, kind of looking a little too friendly, we'll move on. Dayton becomes a media circus. In fact, you have everyone coming to this little town in Tennessee. Dayton is just flooded with reporters from all across the United States, reporters from other countries, because they want to see for themselves and they want to report for themselves this so-called monkey trial. Brass monkey, that funky monkey. Brass monkey, monkey. And everyone's there to report on this trial. You have little chimpanzees dress up, all cute. You got people, trying to make money off the trial by, posing for photos. You have the judge who opens up the trial with prayer and Bible, so there's a lot of religion there, so people are questioning, can this be a fair trial? You even have songs like, "You Can't Make a Monkey Out of Me." So this thing is a hit, and it is the first trial that is broadcasted by radio. So, you have this new technology of the 20s that is able to, bring the national attention to this one small part of the country. Now I want to do a little public service announcement. This is actually really serious. Chimpanzees are amazingly cute, especially when they're little, especially when you put on little suits and top hats. But I want to kind of give you a little quick rundown about why you should never get them as pets. One, it's illegal. Two, this woman had a friend who had a chimp. In fact, this chimpanzee was in commercials, like Old Navy commercials. This was a lovely woman, and this was the chimp that her friend owned. One day, her friend called her and said the chimp is getting out of hand, and she went over to help her friend, and she was so badly injured by the chimp. Her face, her arms, her legs, she had so many bodily wounds. In fact, this is the woman months after the accident, after many surgeries. She was brutalized by this chimp. And the wild thing about it, the other reason why I wanted to kind of share this story, it's remarkable, is she is one of the early people. This is how she looks. Currently, she had a face transplant, but dramatic damage done by this chimp. So stay away from chimps. They're wild animals. Now I want to play for you a little song here, because, like I said, this thing became a media circus. So here is one of them.
Make a monkey out of me.
Can't make a monkey out of me.
Can't make a monkey out of me.
Oh, no, no, no.
You can't make a monkey out of me.
Oh, no, no, no.
I am human through and through.
I am human through and through.
And you can't make a monkey out of me. If a man ever came from a monkey, as some say, they'd be coming now and would ever be. But mankind is the same.
There you go. That's the jam right there. You can't make a monkey out of me. So people were angry. In fact, anti-evolutionist people came to the town of Dayton. Pro-evolutionist people came. Here you got an anti-evolution booth selling, William Jennings Bryan's books. And, threatening hell is going to, come down on these schools. Now, I want to point out something, and this is important. This is an example of this cultural war that we have in America. The first national culture war, because for the first time everyone's able to hear this stuff over the radio and the media is reporting it, and you have these battles over the morality, the future, the social kind of dynamics of the nation. So this trial is so much more important than just science or evolution. It's about something bigger. The trial is a spectacle. You have Clarence Darrow. The courtroom was extremely hot, that hot, humid southern weather. Courtroom was packed with people, standing room only. And one of the most famous things that happened is Clarence Darrow calls William Jennings Bryan. There you got Darrow, there you have Bryan on the stand as an expert on the Bible. And you could read the testimony online, but basically Darrow, the defense attorney, is questioning William Jennings Bryan. And during the testimony, some people say that William Jennings Bryan comes off looking bad. He asks him stuff about how old the earth is. If you believe the Bible, literally, it's a few thousand years old. If you believe science, it's quite a bit older. The story of the whale and Jonah being swallowed by the whale. So, William Jennings Bryan, really smart guy, but some people view him as kind of being ignorant or being foolish, and it's a crazy scene. Now, a lot of people know about the trial because there was a film called Inherent the Wind, which is loosely based upon this trial. Great film, but a lot of it is Hollywood changing what happened, simplifying the townspeople of Dayton and making things be a certain way. Great film, though. Now, the outcome, what happened in this thing? Well, the outcome was John Scopes is found guilty. He's found guilty. There was no question. He broke the law. And he was required to pay $100, but he got out of it on a technicality, so no harm, no foul. But what happens more importantly is what this trial shows us about the 1920s. This is a trial that shows us that we have a battle between modern and traditional, between the old and the new, between the cities and the rural, and science versus religion. So during the 1920s, America is becoming more modern, urban, relying on scientific reasoning, and you have people, especially people who are religious, not all religious people, there were religious people who believed in evolution, but you have especially fundamentalists feeling that we need to react against these changes and cling to some of the old ways.
God, it is great, yeah, yeah. God, it is good, yeah.
So fundamentalists are worried about the changes in America. They react against them. And once again, it's not just about the teaching of evolution. It's about prohibition. It's about, music like jazz. It's about flappers. It's about a lot of different things beyond just this one example. Now, here's the thing that happens. Scopes is found guilty, but the rest of the nation, William Jennings Bryan is really kind of looked down upon, especially in some media. It is being portrayed as not allowing children to think, trying to, close the minds of those individuals. Now, interestingly enough, William Jennings Bryan believed in evolution. He was really worried about people using evolution to justify, social Darwinism and racism. Great political cartoon. You got these two, monkey chimp animals. Joe, do you believe in fiends like those are descendants of ours? No. And what's happening here? You have lynching and other types of horrible things happening. So it wasn't as simple as, science versus religion, but it is an example of this kind of cultural struggle. For a lot of people, though, even though Scopes lost the trial, Clarence Darrow lost the trial, there was this feeling that Tennessee, the small towns, were trying to put the lights out on knowledge, and that they were trying to let there be darkness. Now, the trial's over, but I want you to keep in mind, in American history, these cultural wars exist today. We are battling over values and things like abortion, stem cell research, death penalty. For some people it's a moral issue, some people it's a religious issue. There's still battles over the teaching of evolution, and some people say that we should teach intelligent design and talk about how God played a role in the formation of life on earth. A lot of different things, from gay marriage to school prayer. And we think that we've solved these things, but even things like the healthcare insurance mandate. There's a big debate. Should health carriers have to give, should employers have to give birth control if it is against your religious views? And so the Scopes trial is this trial that kind of brings to the surface a lot of these tensions and a lot of these concerns. And The Onion, if you never look at The Onion, they use satire to make points, and what a great thing. Scopes defended by super intelligent chimpanzee man from the future. How awesome would that be? Should children be exposed to the facts? So both sides are still battling these issues in our public discourse. The end, I hope you didn't fall asleep. There's my relative from millions of years ago at the museum in Tanzania. I do want you to do me a favor, hit like on the button, subscribe, put a comment, say if you enjoyed it or not, say what you learned, give me some suggestions, and always study, love history, peace, love, happiness.